Welcome to the video, everybody. You got Nords here, and I've been streaming just about every single day on Twitch this week, and the number one thing that's been popping up in my Twitch chat is questions about what build I am running. So today I decided that I'm going to make a video about my Stamina Dragonknight no CP build for Elder Scrolls Online. So the first thing that I want to put out there right now is that this build is not meta. This is not a how-to video, and this is not even a good build. I would not recommend that most people play this way. So I don't want people watching this video and then saying, you know, don't look at this guy for builds, this guy sucks, you know, I don't want to be known as that guy that puts out bad builds on the internet, because this is really just an informational video to tell people what I'm running so that I have something to link in Twitch. I'm not telling everybody that this is extremely good. This build is designed to do what I want it to do, and it does that, and that's all there is to it. This really isn't something that's going to be made meta after I make this video, because it's really not good for that many things. It's really just good for what I want it to do. So that being said, let's get into the character sheet here. So this is a Stamina Dragonknight PvP build for the no CP campaigns and Battlegrounds. So I run Nord. Even though this is a high damage set, I still run the Nord race. You can get away with running something like Orc, or maybe Ajit, or Wood Elf, I don't know, something with weapon damage, even Dark Elf. I personally run Nord just because Nord is just really strong overall right now. Defensively, it's super good. It also gives the ultimate, which this is an ultimate focused build, so it's also the only source of extra ultimate generation that I have, so running Nord is just a solid option in general. You really can't go wrong with Nord at this point, unless you're like going for PvE DPS. Other than that, my attribute points are all in stamina. We're stacking that max stamina as high as we possibly can. And my character sheet really isn't that great looking. The most impressive stat here I probably have is the 44% weapon critical, but you got to keep in mind that in no CP that's going to drop down 12% because you don't have the champion point bonuses. Other than that, my weapon damage is pretty high, 3.6k unbuff, that's pretty good. And my max stamina is 29k. Now that's in CP, so that's actually pretty low. Most people are over 30k stamina in CP at least. And my stamina regen is only 677, that's even lower in no CP. So this is not a stamina heavy build. You are going to have a lot of sustain issues, and that's really the main reason why I don't recommend people playing this build. ESO, resource sustain, resource management is a pretty hard concept to grasp. It takes a lot of practice, and I do not recommend beginning or even intermediate players picking up a playstyle where there isn't any built-in sustain on the character sheet, because that really is a huge crutch that helps you learn the game better, is running high stamina. You know, I myself have been playing this game for a very long time. I've been playing since 2014. I've been playing Stamina Dragonknight since 2014, so I'd like to think that resource management is one of my strengths. You know, I know what I'm doing. I weave heavies. I make use of Battle Roar. It's not easy, though. So if you're a new player, I definitely do not recommend just taking a swing at this build right off the bat. You're going to need something with more regen to start yourself off. My max health is 2.7k, and that's in CP. Now, in no CP, it is cut down a little bit, but that's a lot of max health for a medium armor build. And the main reason I run that is because I found that in medium armor builds, you're pretty squishy all the time, but your self-healing is usually pretty good. And so running high mitigation in a medium armor build, I noticed that I just tend to get killed anyways if I run low health and high mitigation. And I found that the best thing for me to do is just to run higher health, just to avoid getting one-shotted, because there's a lot of builds out there, especially in no CP, that will one-shot you. This build in particular is a build that's designed to one-shot most builds. So running that higher maximum health, it gives you a little bit more of a window, or a safety net, you know, for when you get hit really hard with a burst combo, you won't die, and then you can heal back up. You can recover from that. Mitigation just doesn't really do it for you, especially when people are waiting till you're like 50% to pop their burst anyways. So I definitely recommend running higher max health, and that's something I recommend for all medium armor builds. That's just about all I wanted to cover on the character sheet. So with that being said, let's get into the sets. So the first set that I'm running is Slimecraw. This is a one-piece weapon and spell critical, and then a two-piece minor berserk. Now you have the option to run Balorgs in this build. I'd prefer not to run Balorgs. I prefer to use my ultimate in the burst window and not my burst window coming after the ultimate. So you can make that choice, but for me, I just prefer to use Slimecraw for the slight 8% damage on my Zerker Rage. The next set that I'm using is Clever Alchemist. I love this set. I've always been pretty good at using potions offensively. Apparently that's not common. Apparently most people like to use potions defensively, which I guess makes sense because most people are defensive players. I myself, I love running immovable pots, I love running speed pots, and I like to pop them right before I get into combat and use them to help support my burst window. So this set really works well with me. There's a lot of people out there that can really work well with this set, but there's a lot of people out there that can't. This is really a love-hate set. If it's not for you, it's not for you. The next set that I'm running is Ravaging. Now this, like Clever Alchemist, is a burst window set, except this one, instead of being on use, is actually a proc. It's an 8% chance to proc. Now there's a couple other sets that people are using right now. There's 7th Legion and Veiled Inheritance. Both of those sets have way higher uptime than Ravager, because they are, Veiled Inheritance is a 10% chance off of any damage, not just direct melee damage. 7th Legion is when you're struck, which is a lot more often. The thing is, there is a very good reason why I'm using Ravager and not those sets. A couple reasons, actually. So the one reason is the burst window. The burst window on Ravager is 10 seconds. The burst window on both the other two sets are only 5 seconds. I prefer having a longer burst window, especially when you're using Dizzy Swing as your primary DPS, because it's a 1-second cast time, and a lot of the times 5 seconds is just not long enough to line up a burst rotation. So I'm using Ravager for that reason. Also, the weapon damage value that you get from Ravager is roughly 200, a little bit more higher than both Veiled Inheritance and 7th Legion. So having more weapon damage in the burst window is also another thing you want to look for. With that being said, I guess I should talk about traits and everything too. So my jewelry traits are all Ravaging jewelry. I'm using Infuse and weapon damage. You can see the theme here. I'm just stacking max damage. That's really all there is to it. Outside of the burst window sets, I'm stacking max damage. I've got 3.6k weapon damage, and I'll see if I can show you later what my weapon damage stat is fully buffed and inside the burst windows. Other than that, I'm using tri-stack glyphs on every single piece of my armor, and it's supposed to be full impen. I have 2 pieces here that aren't, but that's just because I don't have the transmute crystals. So if you can, try to run full impen on this build. Next, we're going to get into skills. The skills that I'm using are Dizzy Swing. On the front bar is Dizzy Swing, Stampede, Flames of Oblivion, Executioner, Rally, and Berserker Rage, of course. On the back bar, I'm using Venomous Claw, Noxious Breath, Hardened Armor, Fragmented Shield, Vigor, and Spell Wall. So, when I get into combat here, the way I always start my combat is I start with a Stampede. Now when you start with a Stampede, that gives you a nice snare to work with so that you can set up all your offensive skills. So if I'm fighting like a Nightblade or somebody who roll dodges a lot, I'll Stampede, and if he dodges that, I'll Stampede again. I'll Stampede until I hit that Stampede. If you don't hit that Stampede, it becomes pretty difficult to set everything up, and this build is very based on combos. You need to be hitting all these skills at the same time. Now, after I Stampede the target and I get that snare on him, I swap to Sword and Shield and I kind of sit here for a while. I'll throw up a Breath, I'll throw up a Claw, and I'll just kind of keep weaving claws and lights or claws and fragments and kind of trying to stay alive maybe if he's throwing out some pressure too, until I get a Ravager window. Now, once I get a Ravager window, what I'll do is I'll swap to my two-hander bar, and I'll also try to line up the weapon damage enchantment with my one-handed sword there. So I'll get a Ravager proc here. I'll pop a potion, swap to my two-hander bar, Dizzy Swing into a Zerker Rage. Okay, and I make sure I have Flames of Oblivion. I didn't write there because I let it wear off because I was talking too much, but make sure I have a Flames of Oblivion proc up too. And I'll just try to hit all those at the same time. So basically the way it works is I'm trying to line up my weapon damage enchantment, my Ravager, and my Clever Alchemist burst windows all at once, swapping to 2H, and then Dizzy Swinging into a Zerker Rage, and then execute spamming whatever's left. Okay, so this build is extremely high burst, and that's really how I play. All I'm trying to do with this build is just eliminate targets extremely quickly. Now what you can do if you're in Cyrodiil and you're running something like this, sometimes I take off Berserker Rage and I put on Take Flight. This is if we need more like AoE ultimates like Dawnbreakers, and if I have like another DK in the group and we're trying to wipe bigger groups super quick. However, even though Take Flight is pretty good and has a lot of utility, I did the testing and Berserker Rage does hit harder on one single target. And that's really what this build is designed to do. I'm really designed to kill that one healer in the group that will not die. So while it's definitely more useful for the group, if you're not built for this as a Dragonknight to run Dragon Leap, in this case, it does make more sense to run Berserker Rage. And I would imagine that's the case for just about every single build. I really don't think there's an ultimate in the game that hits harder than Berserker Rage. Maybe some of the new Necromancer ones, I don't know. But anyways, guys, that's what I'm doing. That's my build video. Follow me on Twitch if you like the content. See you guys later.